right, good evening, everyone. How you doing? Everybody still? Yeah? Here we go. Okay, so show of hands. How many folks here are worried about the climate crisis? Okay. How many folks here think we should be doing more on the climate crisis? Oh, okay. And how many people here know what to do? Oh, God bless you. Search them out. Search them out after this talk. Well, Soren asked me to speak from my heart and to something that's really vast and big and can be really overwhelming. And we are in good company. So the Yale Climate Communication Center and Potential Energy, as well as a couple of other organizations, held a survey late last year polling people on climate action. And 4 out of 5 people across the globe say that we need to do all that we need to do in order to stop climate, right? But why does it feel like it's not enough, right? Why do we feel like we're always a step behind the wildfire, a step behind the floods that are happening? And how do we figure out what it is that we are supposed to do? So it's a really big question, right? And so I was like, where do I even start? So there's this awesome story that my uncle just told me about my dad. My dad and his family grew up in Tondo, Manila, which is a very, very poor neighborhood in Metro Manila in the Philippines. And my uncle, who's younger, remembers that this was maybe about 1 or 2 years after their mom had passed away from cancer, and my dad couldn't have been maybe 9 or 10 years old. And there was this day where, my dad was actually in trouble a lot, but he was gone this particular day so long that everybody was running around in the family going, where is he? Where is Len? We can't find him. Where's Junior? And they looked in the regular spots. He, of course, wasn't at school. They looked at his friends' homes. They looked at our other family members, and they couldn't find him. And finally, it was getting really late at night, and my uncle says, my dad comes home, and he doesn't apologize or anything like that, and he just goes, I wanted to see the ocean. And so he ran to the ocean as a 10-year-old because he wanted to see it. Now, my dad had the opportunity in their poor neighborhood to be a Boy Scout of America because America has a colonial relationship with the Philippines, very complicated. But it instilled a very early love in my dad as a city boy of loving the natural world, right? And through my dad's eyes, he worked in a lot of jobs, but he really, really loved being outdoors. And so we would go on these road trips to regional parks, state parks, and national parks. And I really learned to love this place. I was born in San Francisco and raised here in California my whole life. And I always learned to love it. This is my dad's pictures. I love showing these. This is the poppies, the mountains, and the streams. And I love California. I love Contra Costa and where I grew up. So this is Mount Diablo. The Ohlone people, the name actually translates to dawn of time. It's a sacred mountain, right? So I live here in Pittsburgh, and I grew up in a big family. These are maybe a fifth of my cousins. We do mud runs together, we exercise, we dance, and we party a lot. What we didn't know is that we had this vibrant immigrant family life in the shadow of a bunch of power plants and chemical plants. So Pittsburgh, where we live on the Delta, is an extension of about 4 or 5 refineries in Contra Costa County, and we happen to be in a town that had Dow Chemical, steel, rail, freeways, and all that stuff. In all the beauty of our family, this is where we lived. I thought it was normal for so many kids to have inhalers, to have bloody noses on the playground, for so many people to be sick with cancer. I didn't know till later that that's not how everybody grew up, right? And I said, when there is beauty and destruction side by side, how do I preserve what I love and care about? And so I spent 20 years doing what Michelle told you in the bio. I was like, how do we as regular people get together and actually protect our communities, right? Because ultimately that's what it stands for. And I asked myself, why are there some of our communities that seem to sacrifice more than others? What is it about who we are and how we're valued, right? That this is where polluting facilities are, and it was the only place we could go, or we were already, and they didn't care, and they put more pollution there, right? So I spent my whole working career doing this, and I was in a frenzy. I was in a constant cycle of doing a lot, and then I'd crash and burn out. Doing a lot, crash and burn out. And finally, in 2018, after spending 7 years trying to make social justice sexy to the world and be like, we should do stuff about these issues, I really was like, I am literally on the road to killing myself doing this. And I have to figure out how to get out of the cycle. And I was lucky enough to live in Oakland at the time, and I was introduced to a place called East Bay Meditation Center. Some of you may have gone up to the practice lounge, maybe. And luckily, EBMC offered meditation and mindfulness courses regardless of what you can pay. And that's where I started my journey on mindfulness practice. And finally, after this final burnout of running an organization, I was like, I think I need to do deeper spiritual work. And that is when I found my second home, which is my spiritual home. So this is a picture I took from outside the kitchen on the Ingala, the little walkway. This is the temple called Chozenji. It's an international Zen dojo on the island of Oahu. It's in the back of Kalihi Valley. It's maybe like 15 minutes from Honolulu Airport and 15 minutes from Waikiki. I guarantee you I was not out at the beach with drinks with an umbrella. I wish I was. But what Chozenji specializes in as a Zen dojo is we believe in enlightenment through the body. There are many ways, as we heard today, of feeling our connection and finding our true self towards many paths. And at our temple, at our dojo, as we call it, we do a combination of meditation, martial, and fine arts. And I would spend, I had planned to spend 3 months doing live-in monastic training. And that is what I did, and I went there. And it was incredibly transformative. Will you all try something with me right now? Yeah? Are you? Okay. All right, we're going to try to do something together. So we're all sitting in chairs. If you're able to get up, we're going to get up together. If you aren't able to, you can maybe just lift your hand. So here's the trick. We're going to try to do it together, yeah? So, all right, put down your stuff. No need to take notes. Get ready. For those of us who may have hip issues, back issues, please be careful. If you need help, look to your person next to you. And on my mark, we're just going to get ready here. We're going to sit. And you're going to keep your eyes open. And you're going to kind of try to track the people around you. And you're going to really want to try to synchronize with them, yeah? So it's going to be on my mark. Okay. Stand. Okay, pretty good. Back down. Okay. Again. Sit tall. Nice and big. Go. One more time, down. Okay, one more time. Ready? Go. So this is how we meditate. Against down. I wanted to give you the feeling of it, right? Because a lot of time, when people talk, you talk to them about mindfulness, they think all you're going to do is sit there. A lot of people, right? So we actually meditate this way, facing in towards each other. And there's this feeling of being really tall and big, breathing low and slow into the body. All the senses open, right? And when the time comes, you're ready to do anything. I have literally seen a rooster come into the dojo and my teacher just get up and handle the bird, right? Whatever's happening. So I spent 3 months. 3 months turned into 5 months, which eventually turned into 2 years total of intensive training. And meditation is supposedly the easiest way, because all you're doing is sitting there. Some of us think that's really hard to just be with our own thoughts. But in theory, it is the easiest physical way to keep breath, posture, concentration. The theme of this conference is the essential. So this is like a thousands of year old technology of how to be centered and spiritually strong, right? So then the trick was, I learned this training, I thought I was going to be silent and meditating all day, and it turned out, the question was, could I hold that same posture? Could I be that calm? Could I breathe that way as I was learning something completely new? When I was chanting words, I had no idea what I was saying. Or when I was on a 10-foot ladder, right? Could I do it when somebody had a sword at my throat? Could I do it when I was literally facing fire? Could I do it in a battle? And not because I think I'm going to become some boxer. I mean, look, I'm 4'11". But if you can imagine, this was 2 years of me facing down largely people bigger than me. So my teacher is 6'4". I don't know if anybody's watching Shogun, but he has like the whole thing on his head. And I'm going to get whacked in the head, right? And somehow I have to stand there, and when I see the opening, go. right? And that is what we train. So when the question comes, what do we do? How do we face these big things? It turns out that my piano teacher back in 1986 told me, we practice. And I was like, what? 40 years, and it came to that answer. And the thing is, we are often told that motivation comes and then you act, right? And what I have learned is actually quite the opposite. And so that is the essential of what we trained. And part of the training was step into an opening when there is one, right? So after 2 years of training at the dojo, I was kind of out at the mountains, and I get a call, a literal call from one of my dearest friends who I'd known for decades, who said, hey, Christine, do you want to run this organization with me? Things are really bad. There's all these refineries. We're in a climate action window. What are we going to do? Will you come run this thing with me? And so my training says, I'm looking around. That's where I have skills. It's time to step into that opening. And what did it mean to choose this work from a place less of desperation and more of a place of love and what I want to protect? So then I joined APEN over 2 years ago. And we work primarily with Asian immigrant communities, but we know that we are just the front line of all of us, right, fighting for our home that we want to protect. And that's apple cider, by the way. We're a nonprofit. That's apple cider. So these are some of our elders in Oakland, Chinatown celebrating. So there's this Lincoln Recreation Center. It's the heartbeat of Chinatown. Approximately 2,000 people go through this center daily. They play ping pong, they take dance lessons, they meet with their friends. And recently, we just got the funding to put solar, backup battery power, HVAC, gray water systems so that this place that has been a community institution can be a climate resilience hub, where people can find support when climate disasters happen, when the energy goes out and you need to refrigerate your medication, when you need clean air when there's a wildfire. Our youth co-designed this one in Richmond with the RISE Youth Organizing Organization. It's called the Youth and Liberation Hub. Our youth surveyed their own families and communities to say, what do we need in order to keep our community resilient? And this is our young people building wildfire safety kits. So we've done this now several years. They have learned how to make tinctures. If you could imagine, the asthma rate in Richmond is really, really high. And I have managed to come home to an organization with communities that are just like the ones I was raised in order to actually start to solve this problem. And so the question becomes less, what can I even do, to what are we willing to train in ourselves and practice to understand what our skills are, to know what we have to give, to be able to see and pay attention and step in when we see the opening. Whether that's giving of our time and resources, whether that is calling an elected, whether that is getting your friends together to make kits to each other or say, hey, when something goes down, here's how we want to help each other, right? So how are we going to train ourselves? Who do we want to roll with? That's my teacher. And this is the community I decided to roll with. What are the places we love? Who is it that we call home, right? I have a friend, Colette Pichon-Battle. She works in Louisiana. She's a great talk on being. And I was talking with Colette, and she and her family have been in the Louisiana Southeast area for generations. And she talks about, we feel so embedded with the land, and as we heard about with psychedelics, right? It all comes down to, when we do all these practices, we come down to the fundamental truths that everything is connected and everything changes. And what Zen adds to it is if we're paying attention, we will figure out where we can enter and act into there, right? And so Colette says, we are simply the land rising to protect itself. We are not separate of it. We aren't doing anything that is different. We are the land and part of the ecosystem just trying to survive. And if humans, we could put our hands to the destruction that we have done, we are a keystone species. It means that we have the opportunity and the power to put our hands to the saving of it. So who are we going to roll with? Who do you call home and want to protect? Those are my nieces. And something may look like an ending. So a lot of people think this is a sunset picture. This is actually sunrise. It is always, always time to begin again. So then my question is, are we ready? And when you hear somebody like me ask you to stand with you, will you be ready to stand with me? Thank you.